Myths that can hinder sales performance. Professionalism and diligence drive success. You know, there are lots of myths out there. One of them is energy efficiency is the right thing to do, so it doesn't need to be sold. You know, it's really funny. Years ago, when I was recruiting people into the Energy Star Buildings program for commercial real estate, I met with a large real estate investment trust in California, which was subsequently bought by an even larger one. And I remember the gentleman, I can see his face in my mind right now. Behind him, his head on the wall was his sheepskin from Stanford, his MBA. And I said, John, you really need to join this Energy Star Buildings program for commercial real estate because it's going to make your buildings cleaner and greener. And he held up his hand, he rubbed his fingers together, and he said, you know what, let's talk about greener first, and we'll talk about cleaner later, shall we? So even in that case, where it was pretty obvious that it was a cleaner and greener proposition, the guy still needed to be sold. And the fact of the matter is nothing happens in this world until something is sold, all right? People say, well, I don't have sales in my title, so I don't need to know how to sell. Well, you can tell from the graphic that we chose for this picture how much we believe in that myth. The fact of the matter is there are guiding principles that we started this course off with. The first one being the energy-related products, services, and programs all require effective selling. And notice I say energy-related, not just efficiency-related. I don't care if you're selling renewables or battery storage or smart energy technologies, electrification or efficiency, demand response. There's just so much stuff you can sell in the energy business. It all requires effective selling. Furthermore, professional sales skills make you more successful in advancing any energy-related initiative, regardless of your role in the process. And finally, you really need to think of yourself as a sales professional, even if your job title does not include the word sales. You know, I told you earlier in this Selling at Six venue that this Accidental Salesperson book was written all the way back in the year 2000. The fact of the matter is that the industry is full of people who started as contractors and distributors and product managers and eco-entrepreneurs and scientists and accountants. None of these people had proper sales training. They didn't get it in college, most likely. They didn't get it in grad school. They may or may not have gotten it on the job. They may or may not have self-studied with books and tapes and now CDs or now actually podcasts and things like that. Maybe they had a mentor, maybe they didn't. Maybe they're just a keen observer of human behavior. Maybe they took a psychology PhD and they know all about human behavior. But the point is that there are a lot of accidental salespeople, and you really need to be a professional, whether or not you have sales in your title. Okay? I'm too busy with the day-to-day pressures of making my numbers to spend time developing my sales skills. Believe me, you're going to be buried in your day-to-day minutia if you don't develop your sales skills. You know, I can wing it. Actually, you can't. There are so many people out there that spend 4 months getting an appointment, 4 hours driving to the appointment, and 4 minutes preparing for the appointment. And that's a sin, because without practice, you can't expect to be good. And the practice is multidimensional. It's not only being able to represent what you do for a living and how you can create value, but also really mind mapping that to your prospect's world before you get in the room in front of that person or on the phone with that person. I've got too many plates in the air to be out networking and generating leads. Well, okay. In the words of Harvey Mackay, the famous Harvey Mackay Envelope Company, a great book on networking, which we refer to later in this deal, in this course, dig your well before you're thirsty. It's a great aphorism to live by. I can't tell a potential customer no. Really? How many times have you spun your wheels on bad prospects? You can't afford it. Honestly, even the concept of doing custom clothing for everybody, you know, the companies that make the most money in the world in the clothing business are not the people who do custom clothing. They have very high-priced dresses, but a $10,000 dress is not a lot if you only sell one of them a month. You know, whereas a Macy's or a mass market or a Target or Target, as they say, you know, these people are selling massive amounts of merchandise, and they have fit their prospects, demographics, their personas. They sell large amounts of product to the right number of people and the right type of people. They don't spin their wheels on custom stuff. And I'm not saying that everything that's bad is custom, everything that's custom is bad, but I'm saying that so many times entrepreneurs, eco-entrepreneurs, and green salespeople wind up spending their time chasing opportunities that really aren't perfect fits. They'd be much better off delegating those opportunities to someone else. If the prospect really wants to buy what we are offering, they'll call back. Are you kidding me? You know, hot can turn cold very, very quickly. And literally, I mean, if you look at the research, especially the research that's related to internet marketing, when someone finds your website and they put a query up there, they expect an almost instantaneous response. And since data can be acquired at such a high pace, high speed, I mean, if you don't respond within, 5 minutes, an hour, 5 hours, they're going to look for something else. In fact, they may plant a lot of seeds figuring that somebody's going to get back to them by the end of the day because they have a very urgent need. So the idea that you could be out playing golf and see something come up on your smartphone saying somebody wants, there's a lead that just came in. Don't think, oh, well, I'll save that as my dessert. I'll call them at the end of the week as my bonus for having a hard Friday. No. You got to stop, put your clubs down, pick up the phone and call that person, or at least text them and say, I'm indisposed right now. When can I talk with you later this afternoon? Because you really need to get, strike while the iron's hot. I went to school for engineering. If I wanted to write, I would have gone to school for English. Are you kidding me? Unless you can effectively communicate your idea, you might as well not have even had it. There are lots of engineers that are in this myth where they say, well, I'm an engineer. I don't need to communicate. I do numbers. Well, yeah, but if you can't communicate why people should write checks for those numbers, you might as well not have done the calculations at all. I need to negotiate terms up front. Really? I don't think so. No, you don't. If you try to, you'll be negotiating price, not terms, because you actually haven't created the value impression yet. You haven't actually gotten to the emotional sale. Remember, people make emotional decisions before they justify them financially. Talking about price up front is totally premature. They call it closing because it's the end of the deal. I don't think so. Closing is actually just the beginning. And the fact of the matter is, if you want to make your customers into clients, you need to have a long and mutually prosperous relationship with them. And that means that once you do the first transaction, that's just the beginning. And in fact, you got to make sure that first transaction is flawless, because that's what's going to set the stage for referrals, to repeat business, to a long and mutually prosperous relationship that'll actually be fun to have. Success happens overnight with little or no effort. Actually not. Success takes hard work and focus. And in fact, if you look at something like Malcolm Gladwell's book called The Outliers, he was the one who was famous for saying that any mastery takes 10,000 hours, whether you be the Beatles or Bill Gates learning a program or Bill Joy of Sun Microsystems or any of these people who are experts who subsequently were luminaries in their field. They all had, coincidentally, at least 10,000 hours of practice. So success is not overnight. It takes hard work and focus. One of my mentors back in Philadelphia had this fun phrase. I don't know if it was original or really took it for somebody, but I've always lived by it. He says, Mark, if you do the right thing at the right time, if you do the right thing all the time, pretty soon you're going to do it at the right time. And so I live by that. I think that's great. I think the more practice you have, sooner or later, the hard work and focus are going to turn up great results. If you did just a little bit, you would never have gotten there. Okay? You need to be a genius to be successful. No, actually not. Most successful people actually aren't geniuses, at least according to the IQ score. However, they are personable, they're smart. I could have just as easily said they're hard workers because they put a lot of effort in. They also make a lot of mistakes. In fact, many successful people just are much more successful because they make mistakes more quickly. Make mistakes more fast. We'll leave that gaffe in this recording just for the sake of it. Never give up. Well, you know what? You can spin a lot of wheels, and you really need to know when to move on. Okay? I'm driven by fear. Robert Schuller had this great quote. In fact, I have a little metal ingot on my desk that says this quote: "What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail?" I think that's a really wonderful phrase to live by, and I think that fear has no place in the salesman's mentality, the sales professional's mentality. I think that you need to really think of everything as an outcome, not as a failure. And the faster you understand what outcomes are good and what outcomes are not so good, the faster you'll be able to readjust your approach and take massive action in a slightly different direction. A lot of people say, well, I need to go with the flow. Actually, you don't, because the competition is going with the flow. What you need to do is go against the flow. You need to be absolutely nonconformist because everybody else can do everything else. You need to do something unique. Someone once told us, why don't you sell to everybody? Why don't you give sales training to everybody? And I said, you know what? No niche is too small if you own it. And I can respectfully and humbly say that we do own the sales training niche in the energy space. I can also say that I'm intellectually and morally and sort of personally bound to this concept that not only do we have a very big shortage of salespeople in this country and in the world, but sales professionals, but we also have a shortage of sales professionals in the energy business. And if there's ever a business that needs more effective sales, it's energy. So, we wrap several missions around each other, and the idea of staying in the energy space, it gives us a special personal gratification to know that we're helping people in this industry advance the sale of projects that we believe in.